You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And, oh, yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to it. Welcome to what day is this? I don't even know what day this is.
Thursday.
Thursday. Thank you very much. It's Thursday. It's the day before the Friday on the week that only has 2 days because we had 1 day earlier in the week, and I don't know what to say. Here we are, though. We're live.
That Monday feels like months ago.
That was a Monday, long in the past. And JP's on the board. Hey, buddy. How you doing?
I'm tired, but good.
Did you stay up doing the whole football partying and then Call of Duty thing again?
How'd you know? Getting the new Call of Duty for Christmas has messed up my sleep schedule just a little bit. But I got to get back on track.
And then all of a sudden, adulting kicked back in.
Yeah. It'll take me a couple of days to get back on track.
Well, you're here right now, and so far the buttons have been pushed in the right order. So that's
So
good.
far.
All right, here we got a great show laid on for you. Listen, no particular guest today. Well, I take it back. We do. What am I saying? Butters and Lee at 4 o'clock today. It's Thursday. Golly, Bob. I'm going to do this all day. I don't know what. It's like I wanted to say Meatloaf Monday a minute ago.
It does feel like a Monday.
Friggin' Meatloaf Monday. That's what it is.
And it's the weekend again after tomorrow.
Can we make it Meatloaf Thursday?
Any day can be a meatloaf
Okay.
day.
Anyway, Butters and Lee is today at 4 o'clock, so stand by for that. We're looking forward to it. And then I got a triple dipper just filled up with stuff, so hit it.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. You can really almost imagine what they are. The first one, right out the gate, terrorism in America. Yeah, we're going to talk about it. Everybody else is too. I got some thoughts for you that you may want to hear, like, what about this Tesla truck? Wasn't that guy a Special Forces Master Sergeant? Apparently so. We're going to. Are they connected? We'll talk about all of it. Number 1, Triple Dipper, terrorism in America. Number 2, I can't believe. I mean, you think, okay, it's 2025. Aren't we done with this? Isn't the woke era over? How much woke can there be? Oh, the wokeness. Look at the wokeness over there. And yes, oh, by the way, what that means is we got to do another round of adventures in woke world. And then number 3, tomorrow is a very important vote on the floor of Congress. The House is voting on Speaker of the House again. I feel like we just did this. Gone are the days when we just saw leadership take roles that they sat down in for a while. No, we got to do this all the time, apparently. And right now, Speaker Mike Johnson, he's struggling for some support among the Republicans, believe it or not. And we're going to talk about what that means. Tomorrow is the vote. We're going to talk about the speaker's race, number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All right, well, let me jump on into the Right Side Way monologue. I'll remind you guys that the daily Right Side Way monologue to start the show off every day, sponsored for you by attorney Stan McDonald, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee, and I'll tell you more about Stan here in just a little while. So let me just say, all right, it's kind of weird, but the southern border is in the news again. The southern border in the news again. Why? Well, we still don't know what we don't know about the terror attack in New Orleans that killed 15 innocent people and wounded nearly 40, but we do know this. The attacker drove a truck, and the plates on that truck indicate that it came into the U.S. from Mexico at Eagle Pass, Texas in the last few weeks. Why is that significant? Well, I mean, it may not be. It could just as easily be proven that it was a rental truck that somebody else used before the New Orleans attacker got his hands on it. But see, here's the deal. There's been so much mayhem surrounding our southern border for the past few years that anyone with a lick of sense sees this issue of the terrorist truck crossing our border as just another example of why we need border controls. I mean, in short, the crisis at the border has been so bad for so long that everything that touches it becomes suspect. So yeah, when a truck that was used in one of the worst terror incidents on U.S. soil since 9/11 is known to have been recently crossing through a southern port of entry, well, can you blame anybody for wondering what that means? I'll be honest, the Trump administration has their work cut out for them when it comes to restoring confidence in our national border security. It's a priority. And they already made more positive impact about the issue before even taking office than Biden did in his entire 4-year presidential debacle. But the American public needs to know that border security is not just a project, not just a whim, not just a talk about. It's not just a talking point or a bullet point on a slide. The American public needs to know that it's real. It's important that we will have our sovereign territory protected at all costs and that those that dare to abuse our borders will pay dearly for doing so. So for the past 4 years, we've talked about it a lot on this show, the Biden administration has allowed an incursion by foreign nationals who have literally flaunted our laws to get here. But in truth, I mean, they've been told, our house is your house, so come on in. Communities along the southern border have been devastated by illegal immigration. Crime across the country tied to illegal aliens is a daily news headline. And unfortunately, too many people are just getting numb to it. It's heartbreaking, really. But despite the obvious impact that illegal immigration has on our national psyche, the fact remains that some elected leaders still don't get it. Multiple blue state governors and blue city mayors, they still say they don't intend to cooperate and they'll continue their sanctuary policies. Well, a change is not just needed, a change is imperative. It is actually desperately needed in some places. But the amazing thing is the southern border has actually been an issue for a long time. Historically, we've had a very tenuous relationship with Mexico. But in the past, we did not sit idly by. There were no blue states and cities fiddling as Rome burned with sanctuary policies that hurt their own citizens. It was a question in the past of national security, national sovereignty, neighbor watching out for neighbor, states watching out for states. But let me ask you this. Have you ever heard a story about when Germany proposed to ally itself with Mexico and assist the Mexican government in taking back Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas? Me either. I mean, I just learned this, and it's a fascinating story. I like to consider myself somewhat of a history buff, and yet I'd never heard this. So sit back and let me give you the long view of the southern border and the crazy story, what became known as the Zimmerman Telegram. So if you know your history, then you've heard about the Alamo, the galvanizing moment that legendary Americans like Davy Crockett and Jim Bowie and Colonel William Travis and a small force of Texians were put under siege by the Mexican army under General Santa Anna at a time when Texas was still an independent republic. Those Texians were fighting for sovereignty. Well, they held out in the Alamo for weeks, but eventually were wiped out to the last man. And a month later, though, the Texican army under Sam Houston defeated the Mexican army. And then 9 years after that, Texas became a U.S. state. But the Mexican government, though, was still determined to have it back. So in 1846, the Mexican army invaded Texas again. For the next 2 years, the Mexican army and American armies waged war on our southern border. But in 1848, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signed and the Mexican government agreed to officially, finally recognize Texas, California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, Colorado, and New Mexico as sovereign U.S. soil. Okay, so we had war on the border. Yes, we did. Well, fast forward 70 years from that. Europe was in the beginnings of World War I, but Mexico was actually pretty unstable. It was faced with its own civil war. And then came border raids into the U.S. by Mexican revolutionary Pancho Villa. I've talked about that recently. There was a nationwide call here in the U.S. for National Guard units to be activated for federal service on guard duty along the U.S. border with Mexico in Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. After Pancho Villa conducted a raid on Columbus, New Mexico, and killed, literally, y'all, listen, 100 years ago, Pancho Villa came in from Mexico and killed, I want to say it was 19 people and left the town in flames. He had a 1,500-man army, just crossed over into the U.S., went to Columbus, New Mexico, and killed 19 people and burned the town. Well, President Wilson ordered General John Blackjack Pershing to lead 6,000 American troops into Mexico and capture Villa. And reluctantly, Mexican President Carranza at the time agreed to allow the U.S. to then invade a Mexican territory. So for nearly 2 years, Pershing and his soldiers, they chased the elusive Villa back and forth on horseback, on automobiles, with airplanes. The American troops had bloody skirmishes with Mexican rebels. And then Germany got involved. And this is the new part that I had never heard before. You see, in January 1917, with World War I ongoing in Europe, British intelligence intercepted a telegram from the German Foreign Office to the German ambassador in Mexico. The German Secretary of Foreign Affairs, he proposed through his emissary to the Mexican government that they should be allies. Germany and Mexico, allies. Germany was preparing to go all in on unrestricted submarine warfare in the Atlantic, and they feared the idea of the U.S. getting involved in the war in Europe. So Germany officially proposed to provide support to Mexico for it to reconquer what the Zimmermann telegram called, quote, Mexico's lost territory of New Mexico, Texas, and Arizona. Y'all, I'd never heard this story. This is crazy. But what's even crazier is that the Mexican government gave it serious consideration. It is said that the Mexican president and his cabinet studied the proposal, gave weight to it, but in the end, Mexico decided not that it was unwise to fight with their neighbor to the north. No, not on the basis of being good neighbors. No. Mexico just decided to decline Germany's offer because they did not think they could gather up the necessary military equipment and manpower at a time when they were already facing internal strife and civil war. My first thought was this couldn't have been real. Was this just like a ruse to get America into World War I? No. It appears the German government actually confirmed the authenticity of the telegram when they were confronted by the U.S. and Great Britain. The American public was incensed. Any anti-war sentiment went away. A few weeks later, German submarines began seeking commercial shipping, and a week later, the U.S. entered the First World War. So in October of 2005, by the way, an original copy of what is now known as the Zimmermann telegram decoding document was discovered in the archives of the British Communications Headquarters. And for reasons that I don't understand, there's still at least 6 classified files related to the Zimmermann telegram that have never been made public. But my point in telling you this bit of history is not just that it's interesting. It's in order to paint the long view that the American border has historically been a source of great effort to secure. Wars and raids and incursions and threats of geopolitical alliances. Taking care of our southern border takes work. It takes a plan. It takes real effort. And we have had no effort from D.C. for the past 4 years. Look, American communities have been harmed and are living under threat, and it was seen back then as an invasion, a destruction of the sense of security and sovereignty that every U.S. citizen has a right to expect their government to ensure for them. A blatant and intentional effort to blur the lines of our national borders by the Biden administration has failed to provide even a hint of care and concern that one should expect a government to provide. So the bottom line is this. Yeah, there was a Zimmermann telegram. Yeah, we've had wars on our southern border. We've had Mexico try to re-seize territory. We even had Germany try to ally itself during a time of European war with Mexico to help them invade our southern borders. But the bottom line is this. We're still here, and that border is still ours, and we have to secure that border. And I believe that we will. We've done it before. We'll do it again. Because without a border, you have to question whether you really have a nation. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. Yeah, crazy story. And for those history buffs out there, I know there's a bunch of them. All you history buffs, that's a story that I would have thought that I would have already heard before, but I hadn't. The Zimmermann telegram. Look it up. When Germany tried to ally itself with Mexico to invade the southern U.S. Holy cow. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Pulling pins on truth grenades. That's what we're doing. Hey, by the way, before I go any further, let me tell you about Stan McDonald, the guy that sponsors our daily Rightside Way monologue. So I know Stan personally. I think the world of him. And what I'm about to tell you is it's like an endorsement, so to speak. Attorney Stan McDonald, he's a partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee in Huntsville. He's a 30-year veteran in the practice of law in North Alabama. And listen, not only will Stan be the kind of guy who advocates and fights for your legal needs, but he's been an absolute warrior over the years for things that are like near and dear to the Rightside ruffian community. He really has. So attorney Stan McDonald, he's represented his clients in literally thousands of real estate transactions over the years. He knows how to represent you in every level of court, whether it be local, state, or federal. And when Stan McDonald's on your side, we always say you have no greater friend. Likewise, your adversary will have no greater foe. So here's the bottom line. You want to contact him. You need legal assistance, especially in the Huntsville area. Attorney Stan McDonald at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee. He's an American first family man, an attorney. And here's his phone number. You ready? Stan McDonald, 256-479-3020. That's 256-479-3020. And tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. And now I got to do that really ridiculous thing that says that like he's not any better than anybody else. But anyway, it says this: no representation made. The quality legal service before is great. Quality legal service before other lawyers. Bam. That's so ridiculous.
It's dumb.
It's some lawyer got involved. That's exactly what that is. Text lines are open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it or call it. What a beautiful day out there. We actually have the window open right now.
Yeah, it was, man. I left from Huntsville early this morning, and it was cold.
Oh, it was like 27 degrees when I got up this morning.
I briefly for a second thought about going back inside. But I got in the car, turned on the seat warmers. But yeah.
Seat warmers are God's gift. They're just like, who invented that? That's amazing. Yeah. And that and the heated steering wheel.
Yes.
I'm not going to lie. My Jeep has a heated steering wheel. Whoop, whoop. I just love it. All right, text lines are open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Plenty of people texting already. Let me get a few of them. David from Bucky says, JP, after the last few games, what are Georgia's chances today?
I think Georgia wins today, actually, against Notre Dame. I think Gunnar Stockton will be better than Carson Beck. But the whole drama with the Sugar Bowl, I don't know how that affects them, having to delay the game and everything.
Yeah, that's amazing. Our first story is going to be on the terrorism in America, and that also held off the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah.
I think it was the right decision.
Yeah, it was for sure. And truth be told, the fact the football game got delayed should be at the bottom of the list of the story and the news, but it is a factor in it.
Well, and that also, there's a lot of people that were in New Orleans, not just for New Year's, but they were there for the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah.
And so all it did was really ramp up concerns. John from Huntsville checking in. Phil, spectacular monologue. Also, JP, your Alabama football team definitely proved to me in Tuesday's ReliaQuest Bowl that they deserve a spot in the high school football playoffs.
Hey, we're on to 2025.
That's awesome. Hit me some applause for John. I think he deserves it, whether you like it or not. Just saying.
I would agree with him.
Yeah. He said even Paul Feinbaum's no longer supporting Alabama. By the way, Georgia versus Notre Dame playoff game comes on in about an hour. I was wondering, is JP going to be able to focus on his soundboard, or is somebody going to fill in for him?
Yeah, I'm going to have to do it remotely at the house.
I tell you what, JP, I will authorize switching the CNN screen over to the Sugar Bowl while we're sitting here.
Yeah.
In fact, we were going to have Attorney Jay Town on today to talk about what a federal prosecutor might be looking for in this terrorism thing. And then all of a sudden he texted me and goes, hey, man, I can't do it. Sugar Bowl.
Yeah.
Well, I forgot he's a Notre Dame
He's
grad.
a Notre Dame guy.
He's a Notre Dame guy. Chef Ben from Aniana checking in says, reading you loud and clear on the YouTube. He says, would you mind listing the radio stations locally one might catch y'all on? Absolutely, brother. Check out 770 AM or 92.5 FM. Either one of those should get you. And if you can't get it there, just keep streaming online, brother. Thank you, Chef Ben. All right, more of that. I got more text messages, and we're going to kick off the Dippers. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Mean, man, just covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. This one right here. And y'all, just stay tuned, because coming up here in a matter of, less than 2 weeks? Yeah, less than 2 weeks, we go live in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and we are stoked about it.
11 days.
11 more days. Yeah. In fact, you're connecting to their engineer and getting us all synced up here pretty soon, right?
Yep. We'll be doing that.
Gosh, that's just cool. This is very cool. Yeah, we're going to have the northern tier of Alabama, the eastern section of Tennessee, and probably really the northwestern section of Georgia, all in our live listening range by radio, not to mention the fact that folks can still get us online everywhere. Some of y'all, by the way, are aware, too, that we rolled off of our station down in Birmingham. So Crawford Broadcasting, we had a contract renegotiation phase with them. The term was up. We renegotiated and decided at the end of the so-called renegotiations that our best bet was to go ahead and say thank you anyway. So we did, and we parted ways. But we have some other things in the works that we look forward to talking about sometime very soon, so stand by for that. In the meantime, I'm pumped about Chattanooga. I can't wait. We're going to have billboards up there, too. Do you know that? Billboards.
Yep.
Like, coming in hard, man.
We got to find a day to go up there and get a picture with at least one of the billboards up there. Check it out.
I want to go up there. What's the name of their minor league baseball team?
The Lookouts.
I want to have the Lookouts versus the Trash Pandas one day.
They're in the same division. They play like 8 times a year.
A few more text messages and I'll jump on the Dippers. Brian from Huntsville says, I'm going back to the spring of 1836. Remember the Alamo? Marty Robbins has a heart-wrenching song on that. I remember that song. Absolutely. Thomas Mathen says, since Las Vegas and New Orleans could both be characterized as, quote, sinful cities by an Islamist jihad cell, is it a coincidence? I don't know the answer to that, brother. I don't. But it's possible. I really think, too, we're going to find out that that there was a signal being sent, if you will, on the Las Vegas one. It was a Elon Musk, Tesla in front of a Trump hotel where it went off. But there's still a lot of questions about that one, too, that I'll unpack here in a minute.
Yeah, I know you're going to get into it, but I find it hard to believe that anybody, especially with his background, would be stupid enough to use a Cybertruck to try to hurt people, because that Cybertruck saved a lot of people's lives with, how it's built. So I think it was more of a message, I would think.
Yeah, I think it's also, though, pretty clear that this was not like there's no way in the world that a well-made IED, that a Cybertruck would have still made a big difference.
Yeah.
And this was not, by all rights, this was not what I would call a classic IED.
Mm-hmm. There was fireworks. They were blowing up like fireworks after, the initial blow.
Yeah. Chris from Gadsden says, you should have asked me about the Zimmerman telegram. He said, my University of Alabama education told me about it. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad you did know that, Chris. Adam from Athens says, the only problem I see with delaying the game is it shows that it can change or disrupt how America operates. Also, JP, the playoffs didn't go how we wanted, but both Tennessee, what's he saying?
He's trying to say Tennessee basketball's 25.
Oh, Tennessee basketball's men. I got you. 25-0. Yep. Still number one. Okay.
Well, we'll see. Oh, yeah, I thought the initial thing, too, of like delaying the game, does that give them what they want? But also at the same time, you got to prioritize safety over anything.
Yeah, they didn't cancel the game.
No, yeah. And it's only 24 hours.
And everybody still had tickets, and I guarantee you there's people that are aggravated that they had to spend another night in a hotel, and flights had to get changed. So, yes, there's going to be a problem, but the safety of the people in the stands and the folks on the field were all the paramount concern.
And apparently they had to sniff out the whole stadium for bombs, too, so I bet that yeah, it was the right decision.
Well, so that brings up a point. Let me jump on in here. So I'm number one of the Triple Dipper, terrorism in America. So I know you've all heard. If you haven't heard, then stand by. One of the largest terrorist attacks since 9/11 on U.S. soil occurred in the last 48 hours in New Orleans. So New Orleans, the French Quarter, a man in a white pickup truck came blazing through the crowd, ramming people, killed 15 people, sent, I think, 37 to the hospital with injuries. He had an ISIS flag on the back. And there was a lot of discussion about, is that a flag? What are we seeing there? And then some videos or some pictures had it, some didn't. What we do know now, and it has been apparently confirmed, he did have a black ISIS flag on the back of the truck. He also, by the way, has been identified. His name is Shamsud Din Jabbar, and he's also American-born. So he's an American-born of some Middle Eastern descent. He's a U.S. citizen, was living in Texas, and he was driving his Ford pickup, which he had rented. So this is a rental truck, and he goes blazing through the crowd and creates this mayhem. He gets out of the vehicle after he wrecked it and starts shooting, and police engaged him, and he was killed. So on the one hand, we don't have to worry about having a long, drawn-out trial with him. At the same time, you want to know, what did he know, and you can't interrogate him. He's gone. Here's the thing that we talked about the game being delayed a minute ago. Here's one of the things that I think has not been widely known. It's being confirmed now, story on Daily Wire, that not only was there a potential IED or explosive device, IED stands for improvised explosive device, in the assailant's truck, but there were two other potential IEDs that were located around the French Quarter in water coolers, and surveillance video confirms it was the suspect who died who planted those wherever they were found. So that's a huge deal. He was attempting to create a lot more mayhem than he even did create. So the idea that they had to search the stands, absolutely they did. I mean, if he's got 3 IEDs, he killed people with a truck, and he had a firearm, and he was shooting into the crowd, then yeah, this was a big, hairy deal. And I look at this and think, my gosh, what do we know about it? Well, there's a whole thing about the truck came through the southern border. What do you mean it came through the southern border? Well, it did. So Daily Wire, again, has a piece. The truck that was used to commit a terrorist attack in New Orleans' French Quarter reportedly came through a U.S. southern border in November. Came through at Eagle Pass. Now, Fox News originally reported, by the way, that the truck had entered just a few days before. But then they updated their story and said, no, actually, tags indicate that it passed through the border coming north into the United States on November 16th. Okay, so that's November 16th. That's a month and a half. All right, that feels more like now this is a rental truck. Somebody used it to go down and pick something up or deliver something, and came back. All said and done, there's been no more talk about it. Now, I said in my monologue, and if you missed the monologue, it's worth it. It tells a bit of history and other things. But my monologue, I talked about the fact that the southern border has been such a mess now for the last 4 years, such a disruption, such a source of chaos, that anytime the southern border is mentioned, it gets everybody's hackles up, rightfully so. So when we hear that this truck involved in the terror incident, the truck that was used to kill 15 people, came across that border, you immediately began thinking, okay, why? Why was it down there? Who was traveling north in it? What were they doing south of the border? Is this part of a cell? We don't know. All right, well, I will say this. New Orleans Police Department Chief Ann Kirkpatrick, in her comment, she said it was obvious that the driver was trying to run over as many people as he possibly could, that he was there to basically create chaos. There's a lot of questions, y'all, a lot of questions about who this guy was and why he did what he did. There were no indications in his prior life, so to speak, with the Army. Oh, he was in the Army? Yes, he was. That he was a radical. But we now clearly know that he was, with the ISIS flag and all of it. Social media now indicates that he had actually sworn allegiance to ISIS right before he committed these acts. So he's been radicalized at some point. We don't know why or what life circumstances may have triggered it. Or maybe it was something to do with all the stuff going on in Israel, and then he got involved with people who fomented trouble, or maybe he had some mental issues that finally reared up. I don't know. What did he do in the Army? Well, what we know is that he was in the Army as a human resource specialist. Basically, he was a clerk. He's not going to wind up being a warfighter. He was not someone who had a very, storied and tenured career as the kind of guy that could create mayhem. He was a human resource specialist, and a little bit later on, while he was still in the reserves, he actually did IT work. Okay, so he's a I don't want to say he's a non-combatant because anybody in the Army can be a combatant, but you know what I mean. He was not in the midst of being trained as a warrior. Shamsud Din Jabbar, this is his name. U.S. born, lived in Texas. He had previously lived in North Carolina when he was stationed at Fort Bragg. And while he was there, he was registered as a Democrat. Interesting. He apparently gave money to Democrat causes through Act Blue, which is their big fundraising source. More interesting. The left won't talk about that, but I guarantee you if he'd been registered as a Republican, you'd have heard about it. Anyway, he had been married. His marriage fell apart in 2012. He had 2 children. He's apparently been late or maybe even not following through on child support. And he actually deployed to Afghanistan in 2009. So 2009, he's in Afghanistan. Now I'm looking at his, and I don't want to denigrate anyone's. Well, I can denigrate him all I want to. What am I saying? I look at his. Okay, he's got 13 years of military service, and I'm looking at the list of awards and achievements, and what I'm seeing is mostly the "I was there" ribbons, and the "I was there" ribbons are the ones you get for showing up. You didn't do anything, but you sure showed up. Okay. So when you show up and you don't screw up, you get things like a good conduct medal, and you get the Afghanistan, overseas ribbon, the Army service ribbon. And he had his driver badge, his mechanic's badge. Okay. He got 1 ARCOM, an Army Commendation Medal, and 1 AAM in 13 years. I don't know what rank he retired as, but 13 years, you'd think he could have stuck it out for 20, but he didn't. And he had what I would call a very mediocre level of military service. Somewhere in his life, though, he became radicalized. Now, there was a lot of talk about whether he was part of a cell. What do we know about that? When we get back from this break, I'll tell you what the latest is on that, because this thing is so fluid that even as I resourced the show this morning before I came in, things have been updating throughout the day. We'll tell you all about it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. In number one of the Triple Dipper, talking about terrorism in America. We've been breaking down this thing in New Orleans. Before I go any further, let me jump on the phone. Brian from Huntsville. Hey, buddy. How are you?
Doing pretty well until finding out that one of the people that committed one of these atrocities is a veteran.
Yeah.
And I cannot understand it because veterans, most politicians, most judges, there's this little oath that we all swear saying to defend the Constitution of the United States against enemies, both foreign and
I totally agree, man.
It shakes me because that's not something to do for a term of office. That's supposed to be something you do for your life.
Yeah,
no matter how long you're
exactly right. Remember, and by the way, I've got a text here from Michael from Taft, Tennessee, saying that he understands that the guy was a staff sergeant. So he was an E6, which means he'd been through, PLDC and probably BNOC to be a staff sergeant. But you remember the Fort Hood shooting? Remember that? That was an Army psychologist or a doctor who was on active duty at the time and shot up a whole bunch of reservists that were moving out.
Well, not looking for participation trophies. We're looking for a lifelong focus.
That's
based
exactly
on what
right.
We've done and what you have said. You have a good one, sir.
You too, brother. See you. He's exactly right. He's exactly right. Something along the way snapped in that guy, and now, 50 people have paid for it, some with their lives. Now there was a lot of talk about whether he was by himself. And by the way, I will also say this too: that the FBI, I don't know. I mean, whoever that first spokeswoman was they brought out. Remember, you and I were talking about this.
Oh my goodness! Well, first they covered the ISIS flag, which is insane to me.
Like, why?
Yeah, and if it wasn't for people who took pictures of the flag, it wouldn't have gotten out. And then she's gonna go out and say that this was not a terrorist attack. Like that just screams from me. Bureaucrats saying we can't let them know because they probably came from the southern border. We can't have that political backlash. And it's just like, how about you just tell the people the truth?
Yeah.
Like, what is the secrecy? Like,
and I also look at it too, and I think, okay, it's the biggest terror incident on U.S. soil since 9/11, I think, or thereabouts.
One of the ones. Yeah.
And I look at it and think, how did they get the young 20-something-year-old neophyte with the nose ring to go out and do the press conference? I mean, where was the FBI director?
Yeah.
Or the local field agent? The guy in charge of the field office. I mean, how in the world?
It's just.
I guess everybody's on vacation because it's New Year's.
Yeah, the secrecy it frustrates me beyond belief. It's like you serve us, It's ridiculous.
And we'll see. I'm hearing a mixed bag right now. I'm kind of going with rambling thoughts, but there's a mixed bag of discussion out there about whether or not the FBI is fully coordinating and cooperating with local authorities. And let's be honest, you want an all of the above. I mean, think back to the if you've ever seen or read the story about how they caught the Tsarnaev brothers, is that what their names were, in the Boston Marathon bombing?
Yeah.
That was an all of the above. That was state and local and federal, because the local guys know the streets, and the state people, they know their jurisdictions, and the feds, they've got authorities and things that the state and local doesn't have, and they combine and they get it all done. And they all bring their resources together and they put together a war room and they get it done. I hope we're not going to find out later on the FBI is dragging its feet and trying to keep the locals from stealing their thunder or something. Who knows? Mm-hmm. Better not be.
No.
Cash Patel, where are you?
And a subtle sign I saw too. I know you're going to play a clip from it eventually of the press conference with Senator Kennedy, and he came to the podium and just kind of subtly moved her out of the way. So I'll take it from here.
He did. In fact, you can go on YouTube. Just like Google Senator John Kennedy, New Orleans terror comments.
Yeah.
And you'll get his press conference. And when he goes to the podium, you're right. I didn't see it the first time until you pointed it out to me.
It was a little subtle tell there.
It's like, excuse me. Just kind of moved her out of the way. But yeah, they were saying at first there was talk about he might have been in a cell. And that's a reasonable expectation, is that this person might not be acting alone. They have now revised that, and they are saying that he was a lone wolf. How they know that, I don't know. What we do know is that when the truck came across the border, I've heard that one report said that the video surveillance shows the truck coming across the southern border back in November, that there were 2 people in the vehicle. However, I'm certain that they have already gone back and the rental records indicate whether those 2 people had reason for the truck and then it was not related. I don't know. All I know is this. We were told that they were aggressively running down every lead, right? Story here on the New York Post, that they were investigating whether or not he might have been acting in conjunction with other cells for chaos to be sowed around the nation. For reasons that they haven't explained yet, the FBI has now revised that story, and they call him a lone wolf, and they're saying that he was operating on his own. I don't know. More to come. But the reality is, I think there's a lot that we don't know yet. And we haven't even got into the thing in Las Vegas. So then there's Las Vegas, Phil? Yes, there was. There's a thing in Las Vegas. And this is the craziest story that still, to me, has so many moving parts that no one has been able to identify. Or either that or they're not talking about it. Speaking of not talking about it, I'll give you Senator John Kennedy's awesome comments telling the FBI you better pony up the details when the time comes. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome back to hour number 2. We're still in Dipper number 1, terrorism in America. This is going to get unpacked for a while, y'all. There's so many questions. Like for instance, you had the situation in New Orleans, which we just covered in pretty good detail. The day after that, we had a Tesla truck, one of those new kind of odd-looking, all aluminum or steel trucks, kind of explode, in front of a Trump hotel in Las Vegas. We now know that the vehicle was being driven, and it was rented also, by the way. And the unusual thing is it was rented through the same app that the guy in New Orleans rented his truck through. Is there more of a tie-in than that? I don't know. That's like saying 2 people used Spotify. I don't know. Is that a big deal? Maybe. They're having to try and check and see. But the guy who was in the Tesla, some reports are saying now that he actually is now being found to have died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound in the vehicle. And the vehicle exploded. Now, there are a lot of people saying, oh, the Tesla really stopped the disaster from being really, really big. Maybe, except that here's the deal. This was not what I would call a conventional IED. Now, I am no EOD guy, all right? I'm not a bomb maker. I've got enough experience to be a little bit dangerous, but the reality is the guy who was in that vehicle, we now know, was a Master Sergeant in the U.S. Army Special Forces. Master Sergeant Alan Livelsberger. He was on active duty at the time. He had 19 years. He was 1 year away from retirement. He's an active duty Special Forces sergeant with a very decorated career. Aside from being Special Forces, Jump Master, Halo qualified, what we know right now is that his record clearly indicates, because someone has now released it from the Pentagon, he had 5 Bronze Stars, 1 with Valor. He had a Meritorious Service Medal. He had 5 ARCOMs, 1 of which was with Valor. He had 3 Army Achievement Medals, 5 Army Good Conduct Medals. He had, campaign medals with 3 campaign stars from Afghanistan. He had his Combat Infantryman's badge. I mean, the guy was a stud. And the guy that I follow on Twitter that's reporting a lot of this, he's very tied into the Green Beret community. And he says that by all accounts, the guy was a good dude, had a good rep. Nobody had an issue. So you're an E8 Master Sergeant on active duty in 10th Special Forces Group. I can tell you right now that meant that he probably had at least a top secret clearance, because he was not just an 18 series guy, which is Special Forces, and they have different versions of 18 series. And he was originally an 18 series communications specialist. And I believe he transitioned to a weapons specialist. And then he just recently completed the 18 Fox course, which means he was an intel guy. So he's a Special Forces intel guy. He had to have at least a TS SCI clearance. You can't tell me that a guy like that was radicalized and was so unstable that no one could see it. Now, I don't know what's going on. We may find out that he was going through a life event. We may find out that he had just recently gotten a bad diagnosis. Who knows? I'm speculating. None of that's real. I don't know. I'm just telling you. But here's what I do know. He did not have a career or a pattern of life that A, says, let me blow myself up in front of Trump Hotel, and B, oh, by the way, let me make such a bad IED that the vehicle doesn't blow up. Now, some are saying, oh, it was Phil, don't you understand? It's Tesla. They make their stuff bomb-proof. Bull crap. You don't make a bomb-proof vehicle. You just don't. The right IED can take an Abrams tank out. All right? So I'm just saying, if his level of experience being what it was, wanted to build a true IED, it would not have been shielded by the manufacturing of Tesla. Does that make sense? It just wouldn't. When you look in the back of it, it was loaded with large-scale fireworks, like actual fireworks, like the kind you use at celebrations, the big mortar kind, which are my favorite, and cans of gasoline. So maybe he did intend for there to be some type of event. Maybe he did not want to create the massive explosion that a big IED could have. And I was going to tell you, I've been near an IED when it went off. And 500 pounds of explosives will level a building. And I can tell you from firsthand experience. So for reasons that we don't understand, somebody who was more than qualified to build a good IED built a bad IED and apparently killed himself. And he was a master sergeant on active duty in 10th Special Forces. None of this adds up. Now, there's a lot of speculation out there too, which I'll just tell you right now is pure speculation, that he and the other guy from New Orleans were both stationed at Fort Bragg at the same time. How many people are at Fort Bragg? You look that up for me? Do you see it?
57,000.
There's 57,000 personnel on Fort Bragg now, Fort Liberty, at any given time. The idea that that means that they were running buddies is pretty slim. I don't think you're going to find that. We don't know what unit. I don't know what unit the New Orleans guy was in. Maybe you can find that for us. Check and see his name. Oh, gosh.
The New Orleans
the
suspect?
New Orleans guy, yeah. Shamsud Din Jabbar. Shamsud Din Jabbar. What unit was Shamsud Din Jabbar in at Fort Bragg or Fort Liberty? Now, if we find out that he was in Special Forces as an IT specialist, maybe they did know each other. But I think what we're going to find out is that he was a clerk at 18th Airborne Corps or something like that, and worked in areas that were nowhere near where the other guy was. We know that this guy too, the guy that had the Tesla truck in Las Vegas, that he rented his truck and drove it there, pulled up under the awning at the front door, and then detonated. Blew out the glass. There was at least one major injury, one death, which I believe is just him. But Brian from Huntsville's texting in right now. He says, former Tesla battery fires are almost possible to extinguish, or quite possibly the reason the truck was designed to keep incidents inside the... Maybe so. Listen, I'm not saying they're not well made. I'm just saying that if he had built a real true IED with major explosives, I think it would have done more. Did you find a unit?
I'm reading this article right now. I can't find it. It's probably buried in here somewhere.
But so the other guy was an E6 who probably got off active duty. I think he got off active duty in like 2012 and then joined the reserves.
All this is saying is that he was an information technology specialist. That's all they're saying in here.
That's it. Okay. All right. Here's the bottom line. We don't know. What we do know is this. People are on edge, and I think that's healthy to a degree. I don't think we're going to change our life, but I do think that what's happened now is the southern border has made things far more difficult because we don't know who's flooded into our country. We know that hundreds on the terror watch list have been allowed in. We also know that there have been any number of events that have taken place that the government has not been entirely truthful during the Biden administration. Like they relish not telling us stuff. Well, I've got a clip here from Senator John Kennedy, who is from Louisiana, who went to the original press conference, and after he moved the FBI spokeswoman out of the way, he had his own comments to say. And what I'm about to play for you is the tail end. He started off by talking about how great local law enforcement was and how these are his people, and he's so proud of the response, and he's so sorry for the atrocities. But then he gives a warning to the FBI about transparency. Play that for me.
I ask from the federal government, catch these people. Catch these people. And then tell the American people the truth. Now, I don't want you to tell us yet anything that's going to interfere with your investigation. And there's things that I've been told that I think are true that I'm not sharing with you today because it could interfere with your investigation. But after we get to the bottom of this, I need to tell the American people the truth. And the people of New Orleans the truth. And the people of America the truth. I think the mayor and the governor are very wise to postpone this ball game for 24 hours. There's just too much stuff we don't know, and it's just not worth it. But I guess my final point is, I will promise you this. I will, when it is appropriate and this investigation is complete, you will find out what happened and who was responsible. Or I will raise fresh hell. And I will chase those in the federal government who are responsible for telling us what happened, like they stole Christmas.
That's it. Yeah. So bottom line is Senator John Kennedy, in his usual, colorful vernacular, says if the FBI, after they find them, after they've done their investigation, and he gets it, there's things they can't talk about right now. He understands it, and I do too. But he says at some point, the people need to be told what he says he's already been told, but he's got clearance level knowledge and he's not allowed to talk about it. He said if they don't come forward with truth, that he will raise fresh hell and treat them like they stole Christmas. And I completely agree. The FBI has got some reclaiming of its status to do, and I want them back. I want the FBI back in that vaunted position where people look at them and go, "Wow, you're with the FBI," and not, "Hey, why are you going after Granny who was praying in front of a abortion center? Why are you raiding people's houses because they put something on social media? What are you doing down there in Mar-a-Lago? Why are you down there doing that?" I want the old FBI back. I want the one back that I know is still there because the rank and file at the FBI love their jobs and do them well. But I'm ready to get the DEI hires out, and I'm ready to make sure that the FBI has what it needs to do its job without all the wokeisms being put in their way, and that we got a true director in there who's going to take it to the next level, and a president who's going to hold their feet to the fire. At the same time, the only way they're going to do that is by things like what we're in right now with the situation with Las Vegas and New Orleans. Find the truth and put the truth out there real quick and tell people what you found. Because otherwise, speculation begins to abound. And Scripture is real clear. People are destroyed from lack of knowledge. That's what it says. People, I think it's Hosea 4:6. People are destroyed from lack of knowledge. And speculation does kill. And we need to destroy speculations and every lofty thing raised up against the knowledge of God. That's Scripture too. And it's not talking about per se news, but the premise is that speculation creates issues. And the only way you get rid of speculation is by letting truth be known. And that's where we got to be. I had a whole stack of stuff right here about other terror plots that have been foiled in the U.S. since 9/11. I think I'm going to hold that for right now. The bottom line is this. There's more to be unwound. But I think we need to move on to another topic for a while. So we'll go ahead and take a break. We'll come right back. And yeah, Wendell from Baton Rouge saying, and I love Senator Kennedy. He said, looks and sounds like a hayseed, but he's a highly educated hayseed. I'd vote for him whatever he does, what he runs for. Wendell from Baton Rouge, we appreciate you, man. All right, you guys, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Pulling pins on truth grenades. So I tell you what, I was going to leave the topic, but I got to stay on it for a minute more because something else occurred to me a moment ago. They showed up on one of the screens here in the studio an image of Master Sergeant Livelsberger, who is the guy who apparently blew up the truck, the Tesla truck in front of the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas. By the way, I do think there is something, if this was the intentional act that it appears to be, then I have to look at this and go, wow, okay, Elon Musk, Tesla truck, Trump Hotel, Donald Trump. Is his signal being sent? Maybe. A lot to say coincidence to, right? If it's not. But here's the other thing. The guy was an E8 Special Forces Intel Sergeant, highly qualified, decorated for valor in multiple tours in Afghanistan. And I'm going to tell you right now, I just know because I've been attached to Special Forces units, and I've known a lot of guys, a lot of good dudes who went through the Q course, the Special Forces Qualification course. You don't go to the Q course until you've been through what's called SFAS, Special Forces Assessment and Selection. The assessment and selection is very physical, obviously. It's also very mental and emotional, and it's also, oh, by the way, where they screen you out. One of the things they do in that process of selecting you for special forces is submit you to psychological profiling. You have to go through a psychological battery and be cleared. And then, oh, by the way, once your clearance level is given, and you'll start off, as a 18 X-ray guy, an SF baby off the street, going through basic training and everything else, you're going to have a secret clearance pretty quick. But then once you go through the Q course and you're assigned, you're going to have a TS no matter what. You're going to be a TS, top secret clearance guy. And then for him to be an 18 X-ray, 18 Fox, that means he was a master sergeant, an E8, a Special Forces Intel Sergeant. I guarantee you he had a TS SCI or higher. He was probably read on to what's called SAPs, Special Access Programs. And the only way you get that is to have periodic reevaluations of your clearance to allow you to maintain it. They don't give it to you one time and say, see ya, and then 20 years later you blow something up. They come back every few years and do period. I had to go through them. I had a TS SCI for years. And I'd have to have the periodic reeval where they'd show up at your door, show you the badge, and say, we're here to ask you some questions. And did you fill out your forms? Yes, I did. And we need references. And they go around and talk to you. It's a little scary. Someone shows up at someone's door. Hey, Phil, some guy with a badge showed up and wanted to ask me questions about you. I said, it's okay. It's my periodic reeval. Oh, okay, good. I mean, it happens. You cannot tell me that in all the periodic reevals, they would not have recognized if the guy was unstable or in some way radicalized, or in some way a threat to himself or others. Someone, somewhere would have said something. The vast majority of the Special Forces community is very conservative, very much so. I can't speak for this guy from the New Orleans side who was a clerk and an IT specialist who'd been out of the military for a number of years before he apparently got radicalized. But this other guy was on active duty now. So I want to know what triggered him, what brought it to this point, and will we find out whether or not there was somebody in the background who was, by the way, we did have somebody who has more time than me, apparently went through, he and his wife's or ex-wife's, maybe ex-wife, no, his wife, their social media, and she was making anti-Trump posts back in 2015, but she's been off of social media almost since then, probably because someone in his chain of command said, tell your wife to quit posting. They do that. So anyway, all said and done, a lot of things unanswered. Questions still to be asked. All I know is this. Senator John Kennedy had it right. The FBI needs to get it figured out, and then, by God, tell us what the truth is so that we will quit speculating. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will keep you posted. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey, all you right side ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. This one I'm talking about Alabama, y'all. Alabama. This show goes out down to Birmingham and over to Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia and Tennessee and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. And oh, by the way, we're about to add Chattanooga as one of our live stations. We go live with Chattanooga here coming up in about 11 days. So stand by for that one. More information to come. But WGOW in Chattanooga, we look forward to being with you. Hey, you know what? Okay, every time I think I'm through with this topic, one more thing comes up. And the lovely Charlene just sent me a tweet that I had not seen. Nick Sortors, one of the guys I follow on Twitter, and she does too, apparently. He's a independent guy that is reporting now that the Cybertruck bomber, Matt Livelsberger, the master sergeant I told you about from the Special Forces, has social media posts where he was trying to recruit fighters for Ukraine. It's interesting. Said it comes after him wearing a photo of him wearing a Glory to Ukraine shirt, which I look at that and go, all right, that's not a Glory to Ukraine shirt. He probably trained some guys that are over there and he's wearing a actual Ukrainian shirt, like a unit shirt. So there's nothing unusual with that, but it says it's also worth noting that, so we got the guy who tried to shoot Trump at the golf course, Ryan Ruth, visited Fort Bragg. Okay, I think that's too tenuous. But the interesting thing is maybe there's a thread there. Maybe the Ukraine thing is a dissatisfaction. I don't know. More to come. All right, I gotta change the topic here for a little while. By the way, we're watching the game. It's still 0-0 Notre Dame and Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, a day late, playing down yonder in Nollins. And Nollins is hosting the biggin, and it's number 2 Georgia and number 7 Notre Dame, 0-0, about halfway through the first quarter, right?
Yep. And can you believe I watched a basketball game in that stadium? I went to when they had the Final Four there. We went to a game and
they played it in a football stadium.
They always play a Final Four in an NFL stadium, but let's just say the players look like ants from where we were sitting. It's a beautiful stadium, though.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
I've never heard of that. I didn't realize.
Yep.
That's obviously I don't spend my money on tickets like that. All right. Hey, listen, I gotta shift gears for a few minutes. Coming up top of the hour, we're gonna have our time with Butters and Lee, so we'll get some more thoughts from them on different topics. But let me do this. I every once in a while you got to pause, and you got to either A, laugh at it, or B, throw the radio across the room, because the wokeisms in America are still prolific. You would think by now they could read the room, but I'm telling you, if you're that far woke, you just can't quite pull out. So that means that I study the sourcing and I pull things together and I find the woke here and the woke there and I put it all into a smorgasbord, a veritable charcuterie, if you will, of wokeisms, a vast buffet, a cornucopia, a plethora of wokeness, which means we have to go through another round of adventures in woke world.
Adventures in woke world.
Yeah. So this one got my goat. I'm looking at I think, what is wrong with these people? So I went to Woke Spy, which is a hoot of a website. I went to Woke Spy and I found this story. Hey, just so you know, you and I can't get a scholarship for teaching in Minnesota.
Why is that?
Because we're white.
Oof.
Just
guilty as charged.
Sorry, God determined that a long time before anybody in Minnesota did. But so bottom line is this story here out of Minnesota. That would be the home of Tim Waltz. Thank you very much. It points out that, like 10 years ago, nobody really believed there was even a thing as being born in the wrong body. Nobody believed you could change your sex by declaration or by surgery. Then all of a sudden, people not only forgot what they knew yesterday, but then they punished everybody else who chose not to forget with them. Well, now we continue to watch where the forgetting goes when it comes to racism. And racism apparently has turned on its head because racism has now become the thing that is backlashing on anybody who's white. Why is that okay? It's not. It wasn't okay on anybody else's skin color. Why is it okay on ours too? But here's the deal. You just might want to know that there's a scholarship in the state of Minnesota, and it allows for people to apply. But in order to apply to be an aspiring teacher of color, you have to be color, otherwise you can't get a scholarship. What are they thinking when they put this stuff together? You have to, who's eligible, says the instructions. You must attend an eligible Minnesota institution, be admitted to enrolled as a professional educator, be enrolled in a 2-year program designed for childhood educators, and be a person of color. Okay, so that's how they're going to do things in Minnesota. The bottom line is this. That ain't right. That never would have been right. That can't be right now. It won't be right back then. And somewhere, someone's going to look at a Supreme Court decision, like the one that we had in the state of Tennessee, and they're going to say, no, that one just won't stand. All right, while we're on wokeisms, it's not just about, white people not being allowed to have scholarships. There's also the whole question. All right, I got to ask you, this is bleeding over into JP on sports stuff. Are they going to bring back the Redskins logo?
They should. And I think that story may be that the people of that tribe they actually brought it to be the logo in the first place want it back.
They do.
Yeah,
they absolutely do, because it was an iconic image that was actually taken of an actual chieftain.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not my story.
Well, it was a story.
My story is that apparently, like Jaden Daniels,
mm-hmm.
quarterback for the Washington Commanders,
mm-hmm.
He was putting his name in the record books basically here in the last few days. And so they put up a screenshot comparing him to one of his predecessors, RG3.
Mm-hmm.
RG3, formerly of the Redskins.
Yeah.
Except that they masked out the Redskins logo on RG3's uniform when they posted him.
Wow. I did not notice that. That is shocking.
Like, come on. So the bottom line is this. There they are. The Commanders taking on the Atlanta Falcons. Washington, they got the 30-24 overtime victory, apparently. Story here on the Daily Caller. And it was a record-breaking night for Jaden Daniels. And they had to talk about, RG3, who had previously held the record. And Daniels put up 830 rushing yards. RG3 only got 815 back in 2012. Except when they posted their imagery side by side, fans began to notice, wait a minute. Where's the Redskins logo? I mean, you can't even pretend that history said there was a Redskins logo. Now you just pretend it didn't happen. It's just like erasing it from history.
It's like they're acting like nobody remembers what the logo looked like.
Not only do we remember, but we're ready for it to come back. And by the way, this guy who writes for Daily Caller, Andrew Powell, he says, and while we're at it, can we go ahead and bring the Cleveland Caucasians to a real franchise? Bring back the Redskins, and by the way, we'll have the Caucasians too. It'd be great.
But what I find funny is that white people were the ones that got offended by it, not the actual people that should have in that scenario been offended by it.
Yeah,
they made decisions for somebody else.
Meanwhile, you got Kamala Harris running for office with white dudes for Harris.
Yeah, exactly.
Wearing trucker hats that say white dudes for Harris. Like, they are so focused on the demographics that they just forget themselves completely. I got a story here that I don't even want to quote. I'm going to do my best because it's just gross. So this is from Mediaite, Dateline 2 days ago, December 31st. New Year's Eve interview. So technically it probably came out the next day, but so apparently CNN thought that what they really needed to do on New Year's Eve was interview a Taiwanese drag queen.
Oh my! I was hoping you didn't go there. I saw this.
Did you see it?
I saw it. Unfortunately, yeah.
Was it as bad as the article makes it sound?
It was pretty bad.
I mean, okay, so why this is a good idea? They bring in this dude who dresses up like a chick and calls himself Nymphia Wind. Nymphia Wind. Okay. Real name is Leo Sao. He's originally from Taiwan. Went on and told CNN's Will Ripley about all his plans for headlining a big event in Bangkok, Thailand, and to introduce Nymphia to CNN's viewers. Ripley described it as possibly the hardest working drag queen in the world. And then, wow. Okay. And then, oh, by the way, Nymphia got a little racy and started suggesting that he touch parts of Nymphia's outfit while Nymphia is wearing it, and then described it to him and then said, "Oh, CNN, I dare you to edit that out."
And you wonder why the ratings are trash.
And their ratings are in the tank. So here's the deal. As like Rightside Media is growing, and we're talking about, occasionally doing things with other networks and stuff and going on people's shows. I'm wondering, who was the scheduler that put this together? Who was it? And did Will Ripley look at him and go, I don't want to do that?
It was some Gen Zer probably in my generation.
Well, it was.
That thought that was people wanted to see that.
But where was Will Ripley in all this?
I mean,
who is Will Ripley? I don't even know who Will Ripley is.
I don't know either.
But I think, okay, first of all, you got the New Year's Eve interview, and they told you, okay, here's what we got it lined up for you, man. All right, go ahead and get on stage. We're bringing in a Taiwanese drag queen. You're doing what? A Taiwanese drag queen. It'll be awesome. Why am I doing a Taiwanese drag queen in an American New Year's Eve celebration? Well, we think it'll be great, like human interest kind of stuff.
And if you say no, we'll sue you.
Yes, exactly
and cancel
right.
you.
So, yeah, there's a claim to fame. So what'd you do on New Year's Eve? Well, I interviewed Nymphia Wind.
Must see interview.
Who asked me to touch him in inappropriate places on live TV. Awesome. All right, well, do we have to? Yeah, we'll take it right now. We'll take a break. We'll come right back. We'll tell you what's going on with Costco. Costco? Come on, man. Costco in woke world? Yeah, I'll tell you all about it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. Bert from Owens Crossroads texted in. He says, woke enough? He says, January 1st in Illinois, you may no longer call lawbreakers offenders. You must call them as justice-impacted individuals. Illinois is that stupid. That's nuts. That is absolutely nuts. Thank you, Bert. Appreciate you. JT Lacey Springs on that CNN programmer says the CNN programmer must have worked for Bud Light. I would think the CNN programmer had drank a bunch of Bud Light is what I'm thinking, just to get that thing going. Mark from Tony, Alabama says, to close the school. What school is he talking about? Close the school.
So
down.
the school, the scholarships for teachers who tend to be black. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Jeff Rowe from Indiana texted in. He says, Phil, if you need to keep up with CNN, maybe you can interview a drag queen. A drag king? Is there a drag king out there?
Surely, probably.
Do they have drag kings? Why would they? What would the point be?
It's
obnoxious. It's a first world problem, man.
It's right up CNN's alley.
Oh, yeah.
If there is one.
Well, yeah. There's a whole line of discussion. So I got an article here from Newsmax. How many of y'all shop at Costco? Bunch of you. Costco, that place where you can find everything, man. Like everything. You can also find DEI. No, yes. Oh, the wokeists. So the National Center for Public Policy Research, a conservative think tank, has requested that Costco cease its DEI practices following the Supreme Court ruling on affirmative action at colleges, arguing the program is discriminatory. Makes sense. I think if you read the room, you'll find that DEI is falling out of favor, too. Except the Costco Board of Directors issued a statement to the shareholders, urging them to vote against the proposal and saying, quote, our board has considered this proposal and believes that our commitment to an enterprise rooted in respect and inclusion is appropriate and necessary. Our efforts around diversity, equity, and inclusion follow our code of ethics. Oh, Lord. So what they're saying is basically, no, we don't want to. We want to keep being woke. We're going to keep doing DEI. That's the way it's going to be. And you can already imagine the conservatives are lining up going, well, I guess I'm shopping somewhere else. Robbie Starbuck is basically saying, you know what? You're doubling down. If you're smart, you'll do the right by your shareholders and change your mind. Last one I got in woke world before we hit the top of the hour. Chalk one up as a win for the good guys here. You ever heard of the Global Engagement Center?
I have not.
Most people haven't. It's a quiet little office in the State Department. That'd be your U.S. State Department, paid for with your U.S. tax dollars. The U.S. State Department's Global Engagement Center, according to Daily Signal, has shut down. Pray tell, what is this? Why don't we have it anymore? Because we didn't need it. It was an office of disinformation and misinformation designed to help foreign governments shut down things that didn't fit the narrative. That's what it was. Founded in 2016, by the way, during the Obama era, which means it had to have lasted through the Trump era, and I don't know why. Maybe he just didn't know it was there. But the reality is this was an organization that Congress has now mandated close up shop. They're like, you know what? We're done with you. We're not doing this anymore. The deep state is huge, man. The deep state is way huge.
How can we function another day without that?
I don't know.
How are we functioning as a country right now without that?
You look at the things they were doing too, like they're putting out all kinds of guidance and they're putting out all kinds of, narratives and trying to shut down, foreign news sites that might differ from. It's propaganda. It's propaganda, and it was also propping up a woke agenda. And it started under Obama. Unfortunately, it continued during Trump, but it has now been caught and shut down. And chalk one up for the good guys. That's Adventures in Woke World, you guys. Let me get a few text messages. Don't forget, coming up top of the hour, we'll take the top of the hour break and come right back to a round of Butters and Lee. Jeff P. from Arab says, Happy New Year, Phil. So glad you're back live. Most of the others still playing best of shows. Y'all are amazing. That's because we're amazing, brother. Thank you so much. But we also love what we do. Makes it easy. And we have the Sugar Bowl on the screen right here in the studio.
Next to Alejandro Mayorkas, who I can't even stand to look at anymore.
How does he sleep at night? I don't know. But yeah, notice I'm looking at the left screen right now to see what's going to happen. Jeff P., we really appreciate that, man. Thank you, and Happy New Year to you. Scott from Athens sends me a YouTube link saying the most unbelievable stuff seen in the sky and on camera from around the world the last 3 months. Okay. I can't watch it while I'm on the air, Scott, but thank you very much. Shorty from Anderson says, hey, Phil, hope you and your family had a wonderful holiday and a happy new year. Just want to say the FBI is not going to tell us the truth. What happened in New Orleans because they're not afraid of the Biden administration, but I can almost guarantee this, that when Trump takes office, the truth will come out. That's my opinion. Your thoughts? I agree. Shorty, I mean, there's not enough time. I don't think they'll have the investigation really wound up anyway before Biden leaves office. And to be honest with you, I'm pretty sure Biden's already left office. I just think, you know what I'm saying. But I do believe that Trump will make sure that the word gets out. And I don't know of any reason there would be to try and withhold here. So wait and watch. But I agree with you, Shorty. Bruce from Springville says, Senator John Kennedy reminds me of John the Baptist. There's a voice of one crying in the wilderness, making way for the coming of Trump. Okay, you know what? I'm not going to go down that road because the voice of the way in the wilderness was to bring forth the coming of the Lord. But Bruce, I see what you're doing. Thank you, man. Trey from Madison says, talking about the guy with the Tesla, the Special Forces soldier, said maybe this soldier was murdered and framed. I don't know, man. Speculation. He doesn't sound like the kind of guy who would commit terror. Blowing a Tesla in front of a Trump tower is an obvious protest against Trump and Elon Musk. We'd expect that sort of thing from liberal crazies, but a solid 19-year vet? Yeah, man, I don't know. And not only a solid 19-year vet, but a solid 19-year highly decorated combat vet in Special Forces. It's a whole thing who's been background checked like ad nauseum. More to come on that one. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, coming right back with our good friends Butters and Lee. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, all right. It's hour number 3 on what feels like Monday, and it's not quite Friday. And we didn't get to play the camel because we didn't really go to the middle of the week, but it's Thursday. But Thursday is a good thing because that means we bring in 2 of our friends who do amazing things in the background, and they help us out quite often. And let me call the roll real quick. So the guy who is the digital man par excellence, Butters, are you with us?
I am here.
You are, with your silky smooth voice. Thank you very much. All right, so Butters is on hand. And then also hailing from the northern reaches of our listening area, Lee from Huntsville. Are you there?
I'm here.
You are. I now pronounce a quorum. Let's do a round of Butters and Lee. All right, you guys. I saw the text a minute ago. Butters, you got a cup of coffee? You good to go? You ready? You ready for this?
I'm fired up.
Coffee is the elixir of life, man. We could do a whole segment just on coffee. All right, here's the deal. I've been talking about it ad nauseum on the show today. There's so much to talk about, though. So terrorism down in New Orleans. Tesla event, in Las Vegas. Let me ask you this. What should the average person think or do in the wake of these events? And do you trust the FBI narrative? Lee, you first. Did we lose Lee? Lee, you can come back.
I'm here. Oh, I'm sorry. It just went out a bit. I'm here.
Okay. Did you hear my question?
Yes, I heard the question. So what I think about the incident itself, or that people should do, I think what we need to understand is that the American people are going to be attacked from within as much as from without going forward. And I think we all need to have concealed carry permits and learn how to defend ourselves, because I think that there's going to be situations where there isn't going to be time for the police to get to you and to save you. So I hope you live in a state where you can actually arm yourself and be safe. And do I try? I have a hard time with the FBI. I think that your average everyday agents are good people. I think the hierarchy of the FBI is terrible and partisan. So do I trust them? In some ways, yes, and in some ways, no. I didn't think their representation was very good in the when they were out there just speaking in general. I felt like they were contradicting the police. It's like people didn't have their story straight, if you will. I think it felt disjointed. I'm speaking of the press conferences in particular. So, I kind of have faith, and in other ways, I think that honestly, we're just going to have to learn how to protect ourselves. I mean, it's hard to do that against a truck running down Bourbon Street.
Yeah, no doubt.
But I question why the barriers weren't up. Why vehicle traffic was able to go down. That's a big question for me.
It's a question. Okay, we'll get to that in a minute. Let me go with Butters first. Butters, what do you think, man? I mean, what should people be thinking in the wake of this? And do you trust the FBI narrative?
So starting with the FBI, I would agree. There's a lot of good folks, right? I question the leadership and the guidance, not just the FBI, but we sit here and we've looked at what the Secret Service dealt with and the incompetence. Why on earth would we? Like, I'm at a point that convinced me that I should trust them. And it's nothing malicious. So I think what people should do is they should assume that nobody's looking out for them. I think we in America have lived in a culture where we go, oh no, somebody else is looking out for us. We've got the FBI, we've got these great entities. And the fact is that those have all atrophied for one reason or another. And so you need to look out for yourself, and you need to look out for your community. Be aware of your surroundings and not assume. So no, I wouldn't assume the narrative. Do your own research. There's a lot of good resources out there. Unfortunately, it is tough to identify what's really true, but figure out what's going to work. But I wouldn't listen to the FBI, and I certainly wouldn't listen to any CNN, Fox, or anybody else, because they're just repeating nonsense.
Yeah, so I totally agree with y'all. The idea of people being willing to see it, say it, and also have self-defense measures in place and know what it means to have your head on a swivel. I think we got a society right now that so often walks around with its head buried in its smartphone that we don't even see the bad guys in the parking lot at Walmart, much less the terrorists that are dropping off suitcase bombs and whatever else. But that being said, I totally agree with Senator John Kennedy's comments that I played earlier, that the FBI is going to have to be transparent on this. And I think you said it a minute ago, Butters, that something about the idea of trust being restored. I forget how you said it now, but trust is earned. And they've got to earn some of that. And the only way they can do that is to tell the American people what happened and to be very clear and unequivocal in telling the American people what happened. There's my thoughts on that.
I think we're a long way from that being something that actually happens. So even with after January 20th, and assuming that all goes well with getting that the administration in, and I there's a long way to go. So the other thing as I look at a lot of what is out there with some of these attacks, well, there's a lot to unpack,
Okay.
and all of that kind of stuff.
Okay,
But
sure
just understand that there's enemies out there that have learned a lot about the American culture.
Well, we've had an open border for the last 4 years too. There's no telling
Yep.
who's come across that border. We don't even have good vetting on who's here right now. All right, let me jump on the next question. We only got about 4 minutes left, so let's go ahead and take it. Total change of subject. Ready? All right, put your political hats on now. So tomorrow we have a major vote in Congress. Every time they seat the new Congress, they then also follow up by voting for leadership. Sometimes it's a confirmation of existing leadership. Other times, though, you're actually looking for a new speaker. Think back to last year. We took close to a month to get past the Kevin McCarthy debacle. But so the House votes tomorrow on Speaker Mike Johnson, and he's had some trouble. I mean, he's got narrow margins. Not all the Republicans are happy with his spending sprees. And the question is, are we going to be bound up during the first part of Trump's term trying to figure out who's going to be speaker? You first there, Butterman. What do you think?
This kind of goes along with the whole H-1B visa, like whatever the infighting is. Everybody, I guess those that don't get on board with what Trump's happy with and what the team is happy with, that you're kind of identifying yourself as a problem child. So, I hope there isn't an issue. We've got to get there's big stuff that needs to get fixed before we start dealing with little infighting and disagreements on some of these finer details of governance. I think it was Nick Freitas that said, like, we kind of need to fix the behemoth of government before we start worrying about the little details. So
Lee, we got about 2 minutes here. What do you think? Do you agree with that? Is this the vote for speaker? Is that a minor detail, or are we looking at something that's a big deal? What's going to happen?
I wouldn't say it's a minor detail, but it seems as if Trump has made his feelings known and endorsed him for speaker. I think the two of them have an understanding on the transition to him back into power, keeping things smooth, at least for the time being. So I understand it, and I think they do have an understanding. So hopefully he'll be elected again, and then they can get this going smoothly. But I will say this: I don't like what he's done either. I don't like his votes. I don't like the spending spree. I don't like the insistence on throwing more money, good money after bad in Ukraine. With no accountability or no knowledge or even any type of transparency into what's happening there. So I think that for now, that I think it's just good to have him in to make sure that slide into power works well. But as we've seen before, it doesn't guarantee you anything. Just because they vote on this doesn't mean a month or two from now that people can't turn around and go, yeah, I think we need another vote because you still stink. So I think it's more just for continuity for right now.
I really do believe that he's going to wind up being reelected. I think he might go through at least one iteration of the vote just to sort of send a shockwave. But I think he's going to wind up in short order being voted in as a Speaker of the House. But I really do believe that, like you said, Lee, if he doesn't get his act together pretty soon and start moving toward the more conservative side of what's going on, that we're going to see a new Speaker come in, and it's going to be ugly.
Yeah.
But Trump has weighed in and said he wants to keep him, and it's not because Trump is in favor of the spending bill, because Trump wasn't. But the reality is Trump does not want the distraction of a month of his first term being consumed by trying to get the House of Representatives in order, because he needs that agenda moving while they have the opportunity, because they're going to get maybe 2 years before they start having to, really face the possibilities of not getting any more agenda across. So get her done, and let's pull leadership together and make it happen. More on that later. In the meantime, we got to take a break. That's round one of Butters and Lee. We'll come right back. It's where we flip the script. They just ask me questions, and I wait and see what they got. Don't even know what's coming. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just, I mean, like, man, pulling pins on truth grenades. All right, we're back to round two, Butters and Lee. And this is the part of Butters and Lee where I don't ask them questions, they ask me questions. And I just wait to see what happens. So I'll go ladies first. Lee, what you got?
So we have our Alabama state legislature getting ready to ramp up again.
Whoop, whoop.
I think at the end of February, sometime in there.
Yeah.
I want to know, it looks like that, or they're prepping us, or they're floating trial balloons, however you want to look at it, that they may try to run gambling yet again in the very beginning of the session.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this, and what do you think is going to happen?
Don't do it. Don't waste our time. I mean, so first of all, no one has ever proven the value of setting up casino gaming in the state of Alabama as being something that is a win for the state. It brings in corruption. It brings in all kinds of ancillary problems. There is no community in this nation that just loves having big casinos. And then the last bill they had was so bad that it was everything the Republicans say they don't stand for. It raised taxes. It grew government. It had monopolies built in. It rewarded bad actors who had been not paying their taxes and even putting people in jail for years by giving them the monopoly positions to have 5 casinos across the state. So do we really need one within 30 minutes of anybody's home? And I just look at this and go, come on, y'all. And people have no idea how corrupt the gambling interests have been in Montgomery. I mean, they have literally like paid staff, paid off the staff and bribes and everything. I mean, people have gone to jail because of what they do. And so the reality is what I'm saying is it also sucks the air out of the room. Because once the gamblers get their legislation going, their lobbyists take over, and it's hard to get anything else done until it's out of the way. So what?
Say it ain't so.
Yeah.
Corruption in Montgomery?
It's just, it happens. Apparently it does. And it also ruins the opportunity to get other meaningful things done for this. I've seen good legislation not even come to the floor because people were holding off their votes on the gambling bill, and it just like God, it just pisses me off. So
last year's a good example of that.
Last year's a perfect example of that. We had some great bills that fell by the wayside because they were so busy trying to get a new casino for Northeast Alabama. I mean, for the love of God, people. Anyway, okay. Do I have any emotions about this? Yes, I do. I got the battle scars too.
Some might make an argument that it's good to not have more legislation get passed.
It's absolutely good. The state is safer when they're not in session. And I could say that because I was there for 8 years. But the constitutional mandate is that they pass the budget. Beyond that, they don't have to do anything. They could come in, pass the budget, go home, and the state would be fine. Just saying. There. Thanks, Lee. All right, Butters, what question do you have for me?
Well, mine's a little dated. Back in October, I just saw some stuff about this. I think there was a little something else that people were talking about. I don't remember hearing a whole bunch about this, but McDonald's and a lawsuit. McDonald's is suing the big 4 meat packers,
Wow.
JPS, Tyson,
Really?
Cargill, and National Beef, and basically price fixing, which I know has already been a big shocker in previous years. So I guess the long and the short, not sure how much you followed some of this stuff, but the long and short of it is they told the McDonald's, hey, there's a shortage, so you got to pay a premium price. And they told the cattle ranchers, that there's an abundance, and so we can't pay as much. And then the price fixing and all that kind of stuff.
Did somebody find the emails?
Well, yeah. So the interesting, I'm kind of curious because we talk all about the China buying up farmland and all that kind of stuff. 85% ish is the statistic I'm seeing. These 4 companies own, control over our meat supply in America. JBS in particular, I'm not sure of all the details of all the other ones, but I mean, it's Brazilian owned. How did we get to a point where we've got Brazilians that own like half of our meat supply in America, and do you think a lawsuit like this with McDonald's, you think that's going to make any difference?
Okay, that's a long question, and I have now 30 seconds left to answer it. The reality is, How it got there is called capitalism. We allowed for people to buy and sell and buy and sell, and until someone woke up one day and realized, oh, we appear to have what verges on a monopoly, and that's why we have antitrust laws. But then the other part of the question you just seated there is the fact that we've allowed a foreign interest to have one of the greater stakes in that, and that's so. We have energy security, we have international trade, but we also have food security. This is why we don't want China buying up farmland. This is why we don't want foreign interests to have a say in what we get to eat. Now the cows are still here largely, the cattle is still here. But the fact that we have foreign interests who have a greater say in what happens in the U.S. economy, it bears more looking. And I don't know that we're going to be able to unwind it anytime soon. But I can tell you right now that if it comes down to as a matter of people not getting fed or skyrocketing prices of beef, I think you will wind up seeing some measure of deregulation and bring that back around. The other question is how much of this is the union aspect of the meat packers driving wages up. Got to go, guys. Man, those are great questions. Those made me work. All right, you guys, love you both. Thank you very much. Butters and Lee, we'll come right back. We're going to do a round here on the speakers race. Y'all want to text in 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Y'all stay tuned. Be right back. Hey, all you right side ruffians out there, you are listening to Right Side Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation, from Birmingham over to Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, all of the Huntsville region, and parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. And oh, by the way, going live in Chattanooga here very soon. Chattanooga is going to cover the whole Chattanooga, East Tennessee region, WGOW out of Chattanooga, and also down into northwest Georgia and into northeast Alabama up in the mountain region there in Scottsboro and Jackson County and all of it. And we're excited about it. So, yeah, looking forward to that. That comes up on the 13th, and we'll tell you more about that as time permits. But in the meantime, I got to jump into this next topic. So tomorrow there's a massive situation happening in Congress. It is massive. I mean, how many times we talked about Nancy Pelosi or, Kevin McCarthy or what? The Speaker of the House is one of the most powerful positions in all of U.S. government. It's the person who basically keeps the train running, right? It's the person who sets the tone and the agenda and makes the appointments for committees and does all the things necessary to keep the congressional record moving forward. Now, we have had our time with that. The Republicans, we are not afraid to dethrone somebody. And I look at that and go, that's healthy on the one hand. It can be a royal pain, but it's still healthy. The Democrats, what do? Well, Nancy Pelosi gets to keep it as long as she wants to. Chucky Schumer, he can be the head of the Senate as long as he wants to. And you think, all right, when are you going to stop with that? You got these octogenarians who are power hungry, who will not let go of the gavel in either one of those bodies. Whereas on the Republican side, we got rid of John Boehner, we got rid of Paul Ryan. I mean, we literally got rid of them. Like John Boehner had to resign. Paul Ryan not only stepped down from the speakership, he got out of Congress. Kevin McCarthy, got rid of him. What did he do? He left. I mean, this is the Republican side of things. I like to consider this as the Republicans are willing to clean house. If we are, they accuse us of being in lockstep. Shoot, look at them. They accuse us of being, that's funny. They accuse us of being in lockstep, and they are the ones who will never change a thing. They won't call anybody out. They won't have any accountability. On the Republican side, it can get a bit, like, it's kind of like having the crazy uncle come to Thanksgiving. It gets a little boisterous. Now, it can be healthy and it can also be unhealthy. If it's people just trying to make change for the sake of change, then ain't no value in it. If it's people trying to assert power or get something for themselves and doing it, there's no value in that. All that does is slow the wheels of government. It's kind of like what I talked about a while ago when I got frustrated talking about the idea of a gambling bill coming up again in the Alabama legislature. There's no value in it. All it does is suck the life out of other good things that could take place on behalf of the people. Well, in D.C. right now, we got a situation. So Mike Johnson, let's not forget who he is, all right? Mike Johnson is an extremely conservative individual. I'm not positive. I think he may have been with the Freedom Caucus. He's got extreme street cred when it comes to being a conservative. He was a lawyer for the Alliance Defending Freedom, a constitutionalist. He is somebody who has fought for conservative things that right-side ruffians care about. I remember when he first got tapped for the position, he kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't see it coming. I mean, I'm not all inside the bubble up there, but I got sources. And so I got Congressman Gary Palmer on the phone. I said, what, you like, so this is good? You like Mike Johnson? He says, Phil, I love Mike Johnson. Now, Gary Palmer is the one who founded the Alabama Policy Institute. And I think the world of him. He's as conservative as the day is long. And Gary Palmer said, loves Mike Johnson. Okay. At the same time, imagine what it's like trying to run an organization where you have a majority of just a few. Like basically, if anybody defects or gets sick or retires, you lose your votes. Dang. All right, so that's where he's been for the last year. He's been fighting an uphill battle. But there have been some great things happening. We've been watching investigations in the House since he took the gavel. We've been watching things except for spending. Spending bills are where he has just about had his own undoing. So Mike Johnson, and I don't understand the reasons why he did what he did. And granted, I'm not in the room. So I give him the props of knowing that he has to make decisions that go beyond anything that I'm aware of. That being said, from the outside looking in, all I could see was what other people could see and what some of the conservatives in Congress who I really trust were seeing, people like Thomas Massey and Chip Roy and other members of the Freedom Caucus going, what in God's name is this spending bill? Why did you get with Hakeem Jeffries and give him a wish list? Why did you work with the Democrats to come out with something that is 1,600 pages long and spins us into oblivion once again, when you know that we've been saying, stop the madness? And the people who had just finished voting a month before to bring the Trump era back in are all about Doge and cutting government and trying to make things, cleaner and more efficient in government and spend less. Please. And yet we had a bill that was going to do nothing but run things up. So what did he do? Well, he got busy. He basically heard, and so first of all, props for this. He heard the bill was not going to pass. The bill was pulled, and they were going to, but he was going to stay. They were going to vote again. And what did he do? He brought back a bill that was something like 160 pages, which is something you look at it and go, so why couldn't you do that on day one? Now, it still didn't, it still allowed the spending cap to be, pushed out for a decision later this next year. The debt ceiling is something we have got to deal with. The debt ceiling is like the limit on your credit card, right? And you see times when your credit card limit's getting close and the bank gives you a little more to work with. Suddenly you went from 10,000 to 12,000, from 12,000 to 15,000. Oh, good. Now I can just rack up more debt. That's what the U.S. government is doing. By extending the credit limit or the debt ceiling, they are increasing the amount of debt we're allowed to have. We've been calling as conservatives for that to be curtailed, to please bring that into a place of reasonableness. We have $36 trillion in debt, and you're going to push this decision off, and now guess what's going to happen? They're going to, because of the way the legislation was done for the debt ceiling, it has to be dealt with probably in March or April of this coming year. This year. I'm sorry, this year. You know what that means? The Democrats, because we have such a slim majority, are going to hold that over our heads like a hammer. They're going to use it as a tool, a bargaining chip, to try and get more debt because all Democrats know how to do is spend, but apparently all Republicans know how to do is spend lately. So all that to say, the conservatives and the Freedom Caucus are really about had it. Mike Johnson's vote is tomorrow. The House of Representatives will go to the floor of the House tomorrow to vote for Speaker of the House. The only name in the hat is Mike Johnson. There's no other candidate. There's no one that we can say has been openly campaigning for the opposition to compete as an opposition. The Democrats will only vote for Hakeem Jeffries. They'll vote for Hakeem Jeffries. So they're not going to be able to count on that. The Democrats will try to, and what the scary thing is, if you're not careful, if too many Republicans defect, then you run the risk of Democrats having more votes. So that means Republicans that are opposed are going to have to vote no, because the majority goes with the number who are voting. If they don't show up for their votes, if they hold out like in a protest, well, that's bad form. All of a sudden, Democrats have more clout. So that means they have to show up and vote no. But voting no, what does this do? Okay, here's the thing. Here's the controversy. Like, for instance, I'm looking at a guy named DC Drano on Twitter, and I don't agree with this. He says, when it comes down to the speaker's race, only one thing truly matters: Trump's endorsement. He won the popular vote, all three branches of government, so now he gets to pick his speaker. It's simple as that. No, it's not. That is wrong. There are three co-equal branches of government. Does Trump's agenda matter? Absolutely it does, because every member of the Republican caucus in the House said they were on board with that agenda. So there's that. Does Trump's endorsement matter? Of course it does, because the people overwhelmingly fought to get Trump back in office, but we also fought to have a congressional majority. Does Trump get to pick the speaker? No. Trump does not get a say. He gets an endorsement. He gets an encouragement. He can make phone calls. He can do the things necessary to lobby for it. He can ask people to please get on board with the vote. But this is not about Trump having his speaker. This is about Trump having an agenda, though, and that's the point. What I don't want to see happen, what we can't afford to have happen, is the first 30, 60, 90 days of the Trump administration being spent wasting our time dithering around trying to figure out who's going to be Speaker of the House while the Democrats laugh and the Trump agenda gets stymied over and over and over again. We need for Trump to take office and have not only the power of the pen for executive orders, but have the power of the House and the Senate to pass true legislation, because executive orders can get undone later. The next president comes in, he can do away with every executive order. We saw it happen with Biden. But if Congress passes the Trump tax cuts and the funding of the wall and the passage of banning transgenders in the military and opening up our energy pipeline again, if you see these things being done through congressional and Senate approval, it is now law. And the only way they can undo it is to truly undo it through congressional action later. We don't have time to screw around with people. Well, I don't know. I'm just mad at Mike Johnson. I get it, but now's not the time. You can be mad at Mac Johnson in about 6 months. You can force him out and with a vote of no confidence later in the year. Not today. Tomorrow they need to go to the floor, need to debate, they need to holler, they need to scream, they need to be the family that's fussing about things. And in the end, the family reunion needs to take place. They need to kumbaya. They need to go ahead and vote him on in there and get her done. That's my thought.
My thing is, if you're going to complain, you better have somebody good to replace him with.
Absolutely.
Like,
what's your plan?
You can't just scream and fuss. Okay, who are you going to replace him with? I don't know. It's like then that does nothing. And I saw Marjorie Taylor Greene say that she wants Elon Musk as the speaker. It's like, okay, let's come out of fantasy land and come to reality here, and actually, it's just it looks like they're just infighting to infight at that point. If you don't have an actual realistic replacement.
Yeah, no, can't. There's no time for that. And you're right. I love it. There was a time when I got real sideways with the Business Council of Alabama one time. I mean, typically BCA and I agreed on almost everything. I was a very business-friendly guy. I was for economic incentives, that kind of stuff. But they wanted a gas tax, and I was the deciding no vote on the gas tax. Myself and my buddy Bill Holtzclaw from Huntsville, we were the no votes. And sitting on the back row, but I was the last in line for the roll call. And so it all came down to how's Williams going to vote? And I voted no, and pretty vocally. And they knew going in where I was. They still took the vote. So they did not get the vote. Well, the BCA was ticked. But my Billy Canary, who used to run the BCA, was a friend of mine. I still love Billy. And we talked recently. And I went to him and I said, I want you to know I'm a no, but I'm a no with a plan. And that's the point. Mm-hmm. If you're going to, there's no value in being no without a plan. If you're going to be a no, have an alternative. And right now, I'm not hearing any alternatives.
Not at all. I can't think of any. I've seen Massey's name kind of float around, but I don't think he would.
Yeah, I don't think he's got the support for it though.
He doesn't. He's almost too much of an absolutist. Like I give him credit that he sticks by what he believes in, but at some point, I feel like there's got to be a little bit of wiggle room. And I agree. Maybe Mike Johnson has too much wiggle room, but I don't know. It's just I really hope the infighting, the start of Trump's presidency, doesn't happen with infighting.
I like the fact that right now, in a narrow majority, the super conservatives, and we need them, We need the Thomas Masseys. We need the Chip Roys. We need the Marjorie Taylor Greens. We need them. They keep us honest. Barry Moore from Alabama. We need them. And I love the fact that in a narrow majority, they can make a difference. Because if we had a super majority with, he didn't need the Freedom Caucus, then we wouldn't get any conservative concessions on the bills. But this is not the fight.
Nope.
Not yet.
Not time.
Not yet. Do it later. All right. Wow. That was quite the soliloquy. Thanks for joining in. Take me to a break, brother. We'll take a break right now. Last break of the day on whatever day of the week this is. We don't even know. We're just proud that we're here live and y'all are here with us. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. Be right back. we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Pulling pins on truth grenades. That's what we're doing. Bulletproof influence, I like to say around here. Bulletproof influence. Well, hey, let me jump on the phone real quick. Mike from Arabs on the line. Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. How about you, Phil?
I'm good, man. What's on your mind?
I agree with you on Mike Johnson. I mean, he's any dog, any man's dog that'll hunt. But you're right. Right now is not the time to debate this out.
Yeah.
But another thing, a lot of people forget, the Speaker of the House does not have to be a congressman.
That's right. It's crazy, but it's true.
So, but, I mean, with Trump coming in like he is changing things, that wouldn't be so out of left field to do something like that if you can't get one out of the Congress we have.
So maybe we have Speaker Ramaswamy come in and handle things.
That was the first name that came to mind, honestly.
I mean, listen, I'd be supportive of that. And I'm trying to think when it happened, but there was, in fact, one time in U.S. history, I believe, when a speaker was not a member of Congress, and I've forgotten who it was. Was it John Adams? I'll look that up. But, yeah. Hey, Mike, thanks for the call. Appreciate you, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you, brother.
Take care. I got to see if you can look that up real quick. Gary MS from Huntsville says, Gary M from South Huntsville, I'm pretty sure that's what that is. Gary M from South Huntsville says, early this morning I was listening to a few speeches by Nigel Farage, and he's my favorite, by the way, Nigel Farage. I love Nigel Farage. He's a member of Parliament in England. He seems to have a lot of support of the other members, and I love the way he thinks. Gary, you are hitting one of my high points. In fact, if you haven't ever listened to it, if you like Nigel Farage, go listen to his speech to the EU about Brexit. One of my favorite lines. He says, 10 years ago, I told you all I'd be here this day, and you laughed at me. Well, you're not laughing now. And it went on from there. Oh, good. Oh, he says he did listen to that speech. Good. Glad of it. It's one of my favorite speeches. I've actually used that in teaching leadership. It's a great speech. John from Huntsville has the grades in. He says, Butters and Lee both get an A double plus for equally amazing performances. However, today's co-winners are Phil and JP with a perfect A triple plus. By the way, got a feeling that J-Town might be celebrating in a couple hours. A lot of game left, but they're at halftime, 13-3, Notre Dame. What'd you find out?
By the way, I looked up this fact check on 13newsnow.com. Claims that every speaker in history has in practice been a member of the House of Representatives.
Okay.
Says it doesn't have to be, but it claims that they have always been.
Okay. All right, cool. I could have sworn there was one time, or maybe it was something that was floated and it almost happened. I don't know. What else we got on here? David from Bucky's saying not looking good for Georgia. Can they mount a comeback second half? JP, what do you think? Are they going to?
I don't think so.
And then Ben from Decatur says, regarding Speaker in Congress, does GOP have the job description of that position that can refer them to guidelines to get in line with each other? Probably not, man. Probably not. It's healthy. It's a healthy fighting family. All right, hey, listen. There's more of us than there are of them. God's still on his throne. Y'all stay in the fight. We'll see you tomorrow.